Hello, my friends, and welcome back. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Finally, the Russians are speaking the way they wanted to be perceived as, and that is a strong, strong country, a powerhouse. You can tell when you find an entity, you interact with someone, if that person really acts in accordance to his self-esteem or not. If you think you're tough, you don't have to think that you're tough. You have to be tough because people from outside will figure out that you're not tough. Certain slips of a tongue or circumstances will reveal that you're just a paper tiger. So Russia wants to be perceived as a strong nation, power and all that. It is, but you have to behave like that. Sometimes you have big and strong countries that do not know their potential. I would call that China. So what do we have here? Finally, the Russians are calling, the Americans and NATO out. That is, you know what? We're going to do whatever we want in Ukraine and you cannot stop us. You were not able to stop us for the past 3 years at least. So I have here about 3 articles where Sergei Lavrov, the foreign minister of the Russian Federation, makes some points as a really strong nation, strong country. And then we're going to jump to Mr. Biden, our weak individual, who unfortunately is ruling over us, is going to give $2.5 billion dollars to foreigners from your children. Why do I say from your children? When they say aid to Ukraine, do you think is the money and the things that they give to the Ukrainians just dropped from the sky? Someone paid for that. Who do you think that is? Who do you think will pay for the money given to Ukraine? You and I. Through taxes, through inflation, and so on. And I have another article here with the Russians again liberating, conquering, taking over, controlling another settlements. The Russians have been doing this for the past, I think, about 4 months now, where they every day they advance and they conquer more territory. Interestingly enough, the Russians tell us we're going to continue with this war until those guys will come and will negotiate on our terms. And finally, the Russians, as bad as they want, will get the West to that point, unless the West decides to make that mistake, which is really send troops over there and get involved in a hot, direct war with Russia, after which there will be no survivals. All right, so survivors. So let's start with the first article coming from Russia Today. This is from the 29th of December. Russia won't make concessions on Ukraine in NATO, Lavrov. Finally, I hear these guys saying something that anyone knows, and that was the main reason why the Russians enter Ukraine. The main reason was NATO's expansion. They knew it. They know it here. But nevertheless, they pushed it as far as they could to see what's happening. Am I going to get a bloody nose? And they're about to get one. All right, at least a little scratch here and there so far. So let's look into detail. The conflict must be settled through legally binding agreements that eliminate its root causes, the foreign minister has said. I don't believe, these legally binding agreements, I tell you this. Do you remember Minsk agreements 1 and 2? One was in 2014, the second one was in 2015. Let's talk about the second one. The second one was signed by the Ukrainians, the Russians, the Germans, and the French. The Russians and the Ukrainians agreed to it, and the other 2 countries were the observers and the guarantors, Ukraine's guarantors, that Ukraine will implement the Minsk Agreement 2, at least. That was sent to the United Nations and it became international law. It was legally binding agreement. What happened? They violated that. And the French and the Germans said, sorry, we never intended to be the guarantors. It was just on the paper. Remember when the Americans withdrew from the Iran deal? Do you remember when they just got out, thank God, from the Paris Accords? Yeah, that crazy guy, Trump. Remember that one? They signed, the country, nothing here, legally binding. Okay, let's say they're going to sign something after Ukraine war ends, whatever that would be. And someone violates that. What do you think will happen? Let's say the United States violates that. What do you think will happen to the United States? The Russians will go to the United Nations and will tell everybody, look what happened. Everybody say, yeah, we'll know. Do you think everybody's going to go behind Russia and someone hurt the United States of America? Unless the BRICS countries could do something like separate, but all right. So let's go to this one here. Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has said Russia will not agree to a mere postponement of Kiev's NATO membership or to the deployment of European peacekeepers to Ukraine, two ideas reportedly proposed by advisors of the President-elect Donald Trump as part of a potential peace deal. I told you this many times before. These guys will say niet. Why do you think we got into this? So we can postpone what we wanted to avoid and eradicate? In an interview with TASS news agency published on Monday, Lavrov said Russia has not received any signals from Trump's team regarding talks to resolve the Ukraine conflict. And I'm quoting, "We have always been and remain ready for negotiations. But it is important to understand with whom and about what to conduct them." Correct. And he said Lavrov said peace between Moscow and Kiev can only be achieved through reliable, legally binding agreements. Minsk 1, Minsk 2. Thank you very much. Next one. Russia Today. No grounds for ending Ukraine conflict. This is on the 30th of December, today. Moscow says it is ready for peace talks, but will continue its advances as long as Kiev remains reluctant to negotiate. That means until they hand over the key. Until then, no, give me the freaking key. Russian authorities, finally, do not believe that the fighting between Moscow and Kiev can be stopped at the moment, Peskov said. Peskov was asked by RIA Novosti on Monday if there are currently any prerequisites for ending the Ukraine conflict. And he said, "Niet." No. He had reiterated last week that Russia remains open to talks to end the hostilities. However, since there has been no progress in terms of Ukraine's readiness for negotiations, we are continuing with our military operation. Right? Ready? Ready. Next one. Lavrov rules out Russia's participation in Ukraine's peace summit. Again, this is from today, the 30th of December. So, says, no, we're not going to participate in your little kabuki show. And I'm quoting Lavrov. I have explained many times that we are not going to participate in the quote-unquote peace summit even if we receive an invitation, he said, claiming that Kiev would use this invitation only to give Moscow an ultimatum. I think that's true. So, why is that? Who's going to be invited over there and who will be the arbiters? Who's going to be the referees? United States of America? Disqualified. European Union and the US's jackals? Disqualified. So who do you think will be? India? China? I don't think so. Bangladesh? Zimbabwe? This is the summit, the Ukrainian Peace Summit. They recognize the United States of America, which is part of this, as being the judge somehow. And the Russians, as strong as they are, so said, no, we're not going to do this. We are going to impose you our terms. Why? Because we're winning and you are losing. Don't you like that kind of, behavior? Well, you have to also back it up, not only pop up. In the meantime, let's see how our money are put to work. Actually, not our money, because we don't have money. This country is in an economic deficit. It works, spending more than earning. That means you go bankrupt. Sooner or later, if not already since 1930s, I heard. I heard it from since 1930s with the Great Depression, this country was bankrupt. But I don't know, since then supposedly we are in a state of paying only the interest of the loans we were given. The loans by whom? What bank, for instance, what bank is wealthier than the bank of a country like the United States of America? Think about it, right? Who produces for that particular bank that amount of money so they can have more money than a country with nowadays 330 million people? What country is that? Anyway, so here is Biden. Biden decides in your name, because he's elected through our beautiful democratic system where any goose and any rat and any baboon has a right to vote and can nullify your vote, which we know we are not baboons here, but hey, keep it as a secret. That's why I love mass democracy. You don't know anything about the issue and you know everything about the issue, equal, they nullify. Why? The right to vote, man. If you want to be an engineer, you have to work hard to be able to be allowed to put your signature on, I don't know, you just designed a bridge or something. You have to go through that. You have to be recognized that you have the capability to understand that. As a voter, you have no requirements. You just have to be born from a pussy. And you come out and say, I have the same vote as that guy. I don't know anything about this, but hey, Q. All right, let's go to this article. Ukrainska Pravda. Biden announces almost 2.5 billion security aid package for Ukraine. Now, ignore the euphemisms. Security aid. It looks very nice, very nice. What's going on here? I think this is a lot of people say it's a money laundering scheme. Whatever it is, we are at the receiving end. It's them against us, or they and us here, or we, how we want to look at it. It's not together. So it's not the United States of America. Biden makes decisions and they're all legal. Everything that he did is legal. Now, do you like that? He is impoverishing the future generations of the United States of America, unless somehow the interests behind all this take over Russia and everybody else, and maybe for a little while we're going to have a better life than others. But then, guess what happens? A tyrannical mind now will be always a tyrannical mind. You'll see. You'll see. Not good things happening to us. US President Joe Biden announced on Monday, 30th of December, that the US will provide Ukraine with almost $2.5 billion in security assistance. Fantastic. As the Ukrainian people continue to defend their independence and freedom from Russian aggression. Ceausescu pecere, Ceausescu pace, gura nu mai tace. That's how these guys were doing in the communist times about that. Yes, you were supposed to do that. Now, if that's the way you're supposed to do now, believe me, I worked in public and private institutions, and unfortunately, that's exactly how it goes. Why? We are all human. A little bit more sophisticated here and there, but just strip us down of our fake persona or ego, how we want to call it, and then you find out we're just the same guys we were 1,000 years ago, 3,000, 5,000, 15,000 years ago. The problem is there are some elites over there who keep us at bay with laws and law enforcement. Let me show you what the Russians have been doing lately on the front. Russian forces liberate Novoolenovka in Donetsk region, and that is located right here. And this is somewhere where Liman is. Okay, Liman here. This is on the big scheme. This, look, I will show you more. It's west of Kremlin. All right, and I'm going to show you two more. Actually, it's right here in this area. This is Liman, and this is Novoolenovka, but they don't show it to you here because these are not updating their map. But hey, I can prepare right here. Novoolenovka is right here, and if you just zoom out, this is Kupiansk, which is the Kharkov. So in this area, they liberated, occupied, however you want to call it. The fact is they took control of another settlements. They're advancing westward. that tells me that someone is winning and someone else is losing. And it's not only the Ukrainians, which are the big losers here, unfortunately, but these guys with their profits are soaring, are increasing greatly. These guys don't care. This guy, for them, is like a time. The more the Russians advance and conquer, is like the time to loot. I'm talking about the banking system, the energy sector, LNG, liquefied natural gas, the military industrial complex. These guys are just, because if the Russians tomorrow would occupy the whole Ukraine, these guys are done. The time's up. The looting is up. Why? They can't shoot inside over there. From where? From Poland? Maybe. From the, the Baltic states? Could be. From the baboons in Romania? Possibly. Thank you very much for being with me again today. I like when these guys are calling things as they are, which is, until about a year ago, the Russians were still calling the Westerners or the Westerns partners. They were calling them partners. Can you believe that? Putin said that. Lavrov said that. Something switched at one point where they said, well, maybe the partner thing should be tossed. Why? These guys try to pull a Gaddafi on Putin and you call them partners? Delusional. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Stay strong, stay smart, look for the truth, and be just.